My guest today is Cassandra Yardeni Wagner. She's the co-owner and chief marketing officer of Chava Communications, the parent company of media outlets San Antonio Current, Orlando Weekly, Creative Loafing Tampa Bay, and Local Culture, a creative marketing agency. Cassie's a revenue-focused marketing and events expert, having produced and promoted countless events, festivals, and food weeks across the country. Here's Cassie. All right, Cassie. Well, welcome to the podcast. As you know, you are my first guest on the Digital Revenue Playbooks podcast that I'm calling Three Things. And there's a reason for that. The reason is the Digital Revenue Playbook that I've written is really from my experience as a publisher and as a coach and as an alt weekly publisher and participant for a long time, right? And I think one of the things that we can give back to the industry, especially now that you see a lot of publishers sort of working together more, there's a lot more collaboration, is alt weeklies have done event revenue well for a long, long time and had it as a mix of the way that you kind of sustain as a publication. And while I have done some events and the Jackson Free Press years ago did lots of events. Um, we didn't ever make as much money as I think you guys do. You are one of my experts that I'd like to bring in and talk to about how people can get started with events, how they understand what sort of differentiates, when a publisher is running an event, how you make that exciting for people, and then how we make money at it. So I know you've got your three things. Why don't you start talking and I'll ask you some questions.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be your first guest. And so my first thing, I think, is identifying white space in your market. So we are big believers in never taking our audiences for granted. So the white space, the opportunities are going to be different in every single city. But thinking about what are the types of experiences or programming interests that your audience have, what types of messages resonate. Again, this is super market specific, so we can't ever assume that what works in one city will necessarily work in another. But once you've made that determination, then starting small with maybe it's a series of sponsored happy hours or small ticketed events or tastings, or food weeks and promotions, or even a series of like sponsored content, like with sponsored reels on your social channels, will help kind of guide you in that direction. And then really the next, the second thing is thinking experience. So once you've kind of identified an opportunity, then think about what experience you want to host for your guests for your audience, and how you, especially as a publisher who have relationships in your market, can kind of infuse that experience with a different flavor. It's not ever going to be your traditional 20 restaurants in a banquet hall. That is going to kind of elevate you to be able to make something really profitable. It's going to be an experience that feels different, that gets people talking. Something I think that we need to always think about and leverage as media outlets, as publishers, are the relationships that we've created and cultivated in our markets for years. Some of the publications that we run have been in their markets for like 30, 40 years. And during that time, we've written about a ton, hundreds, thousands of other, businesses, restaurants, artists, musicians. And so thinking about who we can reach out to in the community to really create the experiences that we want is gonna be key.
So now I was going to ask the question that comes up when you're talking about the events and the experience and the local nature of them.
Mhm.
Which comes first? Do you decide this is going to be a great experience, therefore we'll throw the event and then go find the partners and go find the sponsors? Or
Mhm.
do you sometimes sit around and say, okay, wait, we need to, and I know you kind of said you identify the white spaces, the open spaces, we need a beer, we need a margarita festival, we need, to be doing this. How do you make the decision?
Sure. We usually make the decision of we create like the concept first. Okay, we know that we can do a whiskey festival in San Antonio. It's going to be different, of course, than the one in Orlando or the one in Tampa. All of the partners that we bring to the table are going to vary per market. But we think about the experience and the concept, and then kind of surround ourselves with a few key partners or individuals across the community to make the experience stronger, to elevate the awareness of the festival, or the event, or food promotion, or whatever that might be. We also try very hard not to host events in traditional kind of banquet halls, or like something that you would consider like a traditional wedding venue. We really do try to make each live event feel like it's very much a part of the community. In San Antonio, for instance, we really tried to partner with the local, like, art or history museums or botanical gardens, parks that really feel like they're in this city center, so that the audiences have really come to seek out the events that we host because they feel different, because they feel like you're, really experiencing like a taste of, San Antonio, or whatever market you're in. Um, so, venue is one thing, and then those, chefs or artists or musicians, um, are important to identify and to reach out to, and then kind of, pitch the idea that you have and listen. What ideas might they have? What can they bring to the table? What kind of talents do they have, that they'd like to share with the community? A lot of the relationships that we have, we're able to build on, like, event after event. I often go to the similar groups or people, or even other media organizations, and we kind of brainstorm and spitball ideas for this event. Oh, but like this, save that one for the barbecue one, or save that one for the brunch event. And you're never done. We have four kind of pillars that we abide by for each event, which is never taking the audience for granted. Um, we really strive also to throw kind of, we call them like world class events, which means that we can, create an event in San Antonio and pluck it out of Texas and, put it in New York City, and it would feel just as special and as elevated as it is, here in Texas. The other one is always improving year after year. So we never want to, host an event or a food week or any kind of, experience and just say, okay, like there it is. It was good enough. We always, want to grow and elevate, um, every year. And and then the fourth one is really partnership, which is all ties back into the experience. But we do really strongly believe in partnering with nonprofit organizations, for each event that we host. And I think that being able to reach out to different partners in the community and then have us all come together and like create something special. Um, I don't know. It really just like gives a little more meaning to everything that we do. And it's also a great way to make sure that there are multiple circles talking about the event, every time we do them, because there are so many, different um, kind of entities involved.
Well, I think it's, so good for brand to
Mhm.
be a part of, like you say, world-class events. It's good for your partnerships. It's good for outreach to nonprofits, to venues, to people in your community that you're pulling this together. Now, there's sort of that classic phenomenon of the, nonprofit that gives the gala that spends so much money on the gala that they don't make money on the event,
Right.
right? Like, so how do you bring all those things together? What is it? What's the secret sauce in terms of actually having a profitable event, that's produced by a media
Yeah.
outlet in a local market like that?
Okay. So all of this is really fun and it's all, exciting, but absolutely profitability is key. And we can't, because all of the media is free online, and we produce free papers every week. We can't throw events to not make money or even to break even, frankly. So we do keep a really keen eye on our P&L, our profit and loss statement for every single event that we do. We create a projection, a budget projection. What is the concept? What is the idea? Oh, yes, it's this great experience with all these vendors and all at this beautiful venue. And well, that's all great, but like we actually need to know how much it's all going to cost. Certainly, because we are a media organization, there are always going to be opportunities for trade and trading with other businesses for advertising space is definitely a part of the recipe, and there's a big value in that. Um, so we have every single possible expense listed out. We know what our idea is going to cost, and then we have the income. Sponsorship separate from vendor income, separate from ticket revenue, and we just really have to make sure that we're operating from the P&L. I mean, and by that I mean, we're keeping a really sharp eye on expenses. If we see that they're coming in high, okay, we need to be able to make adjustments. Maybe we don't need that second photo booth, or maybe the lighting can be tweaked a little bit so that we're using the natural light that's already coming in from the venue, or we're making those decisions in the expense side. But really, most importantly, we're adjusting on the revenue side. If I see expenses coming in high and there's not really anything that we can cut, then okay, we need to make some decisions. Maybe we identify a couple more sponsorship opportunities, and we go after those, or we tweak our ticket and we say, okay, we might be able to open up a premium VIP experience. Maybe it's just 50 premium VIPs, but what can we add on in terms of value to make it really worth it? Maybe there's a chef who we're partnering with, and they can do like a separate premium VIP dinner, and we partner them with one of the bourbon brands, and the bourbon brand takes care of the dinner, but then you're able to increase the ticket price by $50 a ticket, and you've also elevated it to this like premium VIP experience. Um, so being
And you
able
you said
go
something
ahead.
in there, and I wonder if this is something that could surprise people. But there's the idea, so this is idea of sponsorship, and like maybe you'd have a list, and you say, okay, for a top tier sponsor, it's $10,000, or this is 5,000, whatever. Would people be surprised to know that brands or the distributors, the liquor distributors or food brands or whatever, that they're willing to kick in, that they would spend some money on events like this? Just one example, when I was a publisher, we would have a beer distributor who would basically pay for the advertising of one of the big music venues in town,
Mhm. Mhm.
because they sell a lot of beer at that. Talk about that a little bit, some of the things that might surprise people who haven't spent a lot of time in the event space.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting because, well, first of all, the biggest, or one of the biggest kind of value propositions that we have as media organizations who are also the event producers is that we are, we have this built-in media vehicle. So, we're not just like Joe Schmo event producer, who also has to build in like a media budget, as part of their event expense. We can, create these events and put together a $50,000, media promotional plan around it. But that's all kind of added value on our end because, we are the media. And we do have, media relationships that we're also building into the marketing plan. So that's a ton of value that you can offer a sponsor. If you have a beer brand who, yes, they want to be involved in this brunch event, because it's a great demo. It's, young professionals, 25 to 45, who have some discretionary income, who are interested in dining out and sampling, different beers and that type of kind of consumer. You're not only able to, through these events, provide them the opportunity to have, they call it like liquid on lips, like sampling opportunities. But they're also able to, leverage your own media. They are kind of aligning with a brand, your media brand that's established this reputation in the community that has this loyal audience, that you're speaking to across multiple channels. And then you can weave in the social aspect. Maybe you have some like dedicated, social media posts for them, or you have an intern, or and depending on the structure of your team, a content creator, your social media manager, go out to one of the bars that are going to be participating at the event and do like a cocktail, demo with a bartender, and you're putting that on your social media. And then you're also, touching your audience with this sponsor's message through your e-blast because, they're doing some kind of VIP ticket giveaway. So, you can really bring a sponsorship to life in so many ways as a media partner who's also the event producer. And I think that is really valuable for influencers who work with other event producers, year round who aren't able to deliver all of that
Right. No, I like that a lot. All right. So one last thing before I let you go. If let's say we've got a startup publication out there or somebody just doesn't they haven't done this a lot or they don't have a lot of budget for it or they
value.
where would you start? Like what do you think is the smallest sort of thing around event revenue that you can start with?
I think that I would probably start with some kind of food week because it's less kind of labor intensive. Producing events requires a little bit of a team, and we've certainly like bootstrapped it and done it with like a handful of us. But I would start with some kind of either restaurant week or a burger week, or I don't know, maybe it's like a banh mi week, whatever kind of cuisine might make sense for your market. I would start there. Definitely make sure that you have some kind of sponsorship like pitch deck, that outlines the sponsorship benefits, including the media value that you're delivering to your sponsors. Some kind of audience profile, breaking down your demographic and who your readership is or who you expect to be, at the event or patronizing the food week, and then making basically a list, just like your sellers who are selling the quarter pages in your publication or the display ads on your website, a list of sponsors who make sense for that event, and don't feel like you're kind of restricted to just beer and liquor categories. There are a lot of community organizations who are very open to reaching large audiences within your community. I mean, think big. I've seen Tide be the official stain remover of, XYZ Burger Week. There are auto sponsorships that would make sense for a food week. Don't kind of pigeonhole yourself into just asking for business from, beer and wine distributors. There are so many different categories of business. Thinking about your consumer and kind of the type of person who's going to be at the event, it's really key. With brunch and professionals, think like med spa, fitness, health, beauty, uh, you know, wealth management for a whiskey event. I mean, that's like very kind
Well, I
of low
was
hanging fruit, but
one of my
yeah,
favorite examples of yours that we did in a different video series at one point was the cooling station from the HVAC company, right?
yeah,
So they come
yeah,
out and,
exactly.
look how well we cool you off at this hot summer event in Texas, right? And
Yeah.
I always liked, when we did best of events, we had a car dealer who would come put cars out front, and they were
Mhm,
one of the finalists in best of. This idea, I think, and we'll explore it a little more in the playbook, I think, but this idea that one entity can pay for some of the things that are happening for another. So, like another place I would suggest people start is if you've got a charitable event.
mhm,
We used to do every year we did a domestic violence shelter, fundraiser, but a lot of brands would pay into that event to both make it profitable for us, not like a huge profit. We were giving a lot of money
mhm,
to a charitable event in that situation, but to make it worth our time to do it and all that,
mhm.
and to help the charity and to just for everybody to come together to benefit like that. So that partnership I think is critical, right?
The partnership is key, and that's a great point. There's some brands who aren't necessarily going to or maybe can't pay your publication directly, but they can maybe pay either your nonprofit partner directly, or even better, host your event at a venue that is also a nonprofit, like a museum. Many are, and then that expense comes right off of your P&L. It gets washed out because the sponsor paid that bill for you. So lots of creative ways to make your P&L work.
Yeah, and I don't know how this works. Like, I'm not an accountant, so I don't I don't know how it works for nonprofit media, but
Yeah,
for-profit media, we get really used to the idea that we're not gonna pay for a lot of stuff like venue rentals or,
correct.
you're gonna pay for your insurance policies and you have to pay for certain, for staffing and things like that, but there's so much
Yep.
that you can trade in terms of the food or, an official drink sponsor or whatever it is that, when you're going into that it's a nice way to add to the bottom line as well.
Oh,
All right. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for joining me on this first podcast ever of the Digital Revenue Playbook. Three things. I think people are really going to benefit from what you had to say. So, thanks for doing it.
thank you so much for thinking of me. It was a pleasure.
And I got your LinkedIn up there so people can
Perfect.
connect with you on LinkedIn if they've got questions or want to hire you for one of these world class events that you do. Of course, you're pretty
Reach
busy
out.
owning publications. Name the publications, by the way, just so people can go check out their websites.
Sure. So it's the San Antonio Current, Orlando Weekly, and Creative Loafing Tampa Bay.
Okay, perfect. Cassie, we will talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.